What's good, Joe? What's good, Real Talk Squad? This is Miles, and you're listening to Real Talk and Miles Johnson, where we always keep it real. Now, the finals just ended. Game six, Giannis put up 50 points, 14 rebounds, five blocks, or four or five blocks. I mean, he had a tremendous game. And for this episode, I have a special guest, Chris Bolton. And if you don't know who Chris is, you do now. He is a sports reporter and sports anchor in Columbus, Mississippi. And thank you, Chris, for coming on this podcast with me. I know we just met a couple of weeks ago, but
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Oh yeah, man. It's no problem. It's nothing but love. Appreciate you having me on.
For sure. Y'all know I only bring heavy hitters on the podcast. I got to bring a heavy hitter, and this guy is a heavy hitter. And
Let's
so
get it.
so for the first question, I'm gonna say, what was your reaction to the Bucks, winning the NBA Finals?
Man, I mean, like everybody else, like, wow, like Giannis and them, they really did it. Like they really got the chip. And it's amazing, dog. Like, it's a legacy thing right here. I mean, it's as early as it is still in Giannis's career. Like this is big time. Like you solidify yourself as an all-time great right here. He got it out the mud. He didn't go join a super team. He was the man. He committed to Milwaukee, and he got, he led them to a championship. So man, I mean, this a big deal for Milwaukee, for the Bucks to get this win, and for everything to kind of roll their way. They made some crazy moves to make all this happen, traded away their whole draft rights for the next decade just to bring
Yep,
in Drew Holiday, and it paid off.
they did. Yeah, I think they traded like three first round picks for him, and at the time, I was like, three first round picks for Drew Holiday. I mean, they
And,
traded.
and, and pick swaps. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like they traded a lot of draft capital.
yeah, and that was kind of like the same kind of trade. I think that was same around. I think, matter of fact, the Nets traded around like three or something, first round picks for Harden, or like eight, or the Lakers did something like that. With
Mm-hmm.
trading for Anthony Davis, and obviously Drew Holiday isn't near the kind of superstar like James Harden, Anthony Davis is. But
Mm-hmm.
it ended up paying off. And I just think, like, like you said, it's like Giannis did this with the team that drafted him. And you got to give him
Right.
that respect. And I mean, we have, I'm a big Bron fan, but after Bron, went to Miami, that basically started, this, like, I mean, there's always been super teams, but with players basically, taking control of their own careers, and going to different, going to wherever they want to go, teaming up with
Mm-hmm.
whoever they want to team up with. And that kind of started, guys with KD, guys all over the league, James Harden, Kawhi, and the Clippers. So it's like players are like all doing this. I respect that Giannis didn't follow the trend and didn't do what everybody else is doing. He stuck with
Yeah.
the team that drafted him. I think like in 2013, 2014, the Bucks were 15 and 67, like one of the worst teams in the league. Chris Middleton was in the G League. Giannis came into the league as a project, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
crazy how you just see him, rise up. He was a most improved player. Then he was a defensive player of the year. Then he was a two-time MVP. He just kept moving up. And I just have respect for him, because it's just like he like just keeps working, keeps working. You saw how he came into the league. He was like, I mean, it did help that he grew like 2 inches, but he still put up like 60 pounds of muscle.
I'm about
And
to say, yeah, I think he put on like 55 pounds, bro. Like that's work. You don't just all of a sudden put on 55 pounds.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like, he put in the work. And so, I'm glad that, he's finally paying off. And my next question is, did the Bucks win this? Because I mean, the Suns, they were up 2-0, and a lot of people, thought that the Suns would win this series. But did the Bucks win this series, or did the Suns choke?
There's always, a little bit of both whenever situations like this happen. I mean, it's kind of similar to when the Cavs came back from 3-1. Like you have to give LeBron and Kyrie credit. Like, yeah, they led the comeback, but also the Warriors did choke a little bit. So the Suns choked some. Chris Paul, he's gonna look back at Game 4 and he's gonna be disappointed in how he played. I mean, that was an all-time, kind of disappointing performance that he had in Game 4. He didn't show up, but we have to be real. We got to give the Bucks credit right here. Like Giannis put together a finals performance that's going to go down as an all-timer. I mean, this is up there with, D Wade in 06.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other performances, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, the series as he had, some of these MJ series, on the run the Bulls had. This is all-time great stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like when people go through the books, the history books years from now, they're gonna be like, wow, like this dude really was putting up 38 and 12 every game. You know what I'm saying? That's incredible. So we really, I have to give it to the Bucks when your best player has an all-time performance throughout the series, when Middleton stepped up and hit the big shots when they needed it most. When Drew Holiday put the clamps on Chris Paul, people gonna come up with excuses for Chris Paul and say maybe it was COVID, maybe he's injured and we don't know yet. No, I'm giving Drew the credit. He put the clamps on him, so sure. I'm giving it to the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Bucks too, simply because now obviously Chris Paul had a terrible game for 10 points. I mean, like 5 turnovers. He doesn't even turn over the ball like that, and he turned over the ball like a lot this series. Devin Booker didn't have a great game 6. He was missing a lot of open shots. DeAndre Ayton had a terrible game 6. But I think that game 5 was really the turning point in that in this series, and the Bucks really won that game. The Bucks they were down 16 and by the end of the first quarter, or like during like the second quarter, and Drew Holiday had the game of his life. I mean, 27 points, 13 assists, and like you said, clamping down. Like what you can say is Drew Holiday, he'll either go. He was going like 4 for 20, 4 for 19 some games. He's cold and he's hot, but what's consistent is his defense, and his defense on Devin Booker, his defense on Chris Paul. I mean, it was great, and so definitely that game 5. I mean, he played the game of his life. I mean, him, Chris Middleton, Giannis, they all. I mean, Chris Middleton had 28 points. Yeah, Giannis had 32 points. They all, combined.
Even Dante, man, I gotta give Dante DiVincenzo some love. He played solid this series, knocking down threes. He was big time.
Yeah, but actually, DiVincenzo, he was injured.
I mean, I said Dante. I mean, Pat Connaughton.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, guys like Pat Connaughton, guys like Bobby Portis, who put up like 16 points in game 6. So it was like, I feel like they all won this series, especially in that game 5. It was like everybody was just hitting in all cylinders, and that team just all clicked together. So I would say that, that the Bucks won this series. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people picked the Suns. I think one, to root for Chris Paul, but also because we thought that Giannis was not going to be he was not going to play the way he was since his injury. Since we almost thought that he was going to be out for like the entire playoffs or whatever. It looked like he tore his ACL or something.
His leg bent backwards. Like,
yeah,
like he shouldn't even be on the.
I don't even know how he came back. But it's like, he came back. And I think that's why a lot of people, had the Suns winning this series. But obviously, I mean, Giannis's worst game was 20 and 17 in game 1. I'm like, what? So once I saw that, I was like, okay, because I had Suns in 6. Then I saw game 1. I was like, all right, I'm gonna have Suns in 7. But Giannis, he just kept getting better and better. So I would say, yeah, the Bucks won it. But it isn't a good look. That game 4 in that game, in that game 6 for DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker, specifically. But I don't think Chris Paul should get too much blame, except for that game 4. But for the rest of the series, he was fairly good. He wasn't choking. In game 6, I mean, he was the only guy that really came to play for us. So so I think at the end of the day, the better team won, and the team with the best player won. And most times, the team with the best player is gonna.
That's win. How it is in basketball. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. If you got the best player, you're gonna have a chance. And we also gotta give Bud made some adjustments too. Like he threw out that super tall lineup with Giannis, Middleton, and Portis and those guys. Like it was just a straight super long lineup, and a lineup that hadn't played together all season. He pulled it out for the first time in the finals, and it was effective.
Yeah,
So,
for
you
sure.
know, I think that's kind of an underrated key in this series that like Budenholzer, he held his weight as a coach and made proper adjustments because we knew what Monty Williams was going to come and do. But Bud, he countered, he held his own, and, you know, it paid off, you know, and that Bucks win in 6.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people were on Coach Bud talking about the dumbest team in NBA history, all this. I'm like, hey, I mean, he did what he had to do. So we'll just shift this to CP3 and his legacy. How much does this finals loss? Chris Paul is probably gonna go. I don't see the Suns, going back to the finals. But how much does this finals loss, hurt CP3's legacy, if at all?
I'm not gonna say it hurts his legacy. You know, he had a chance to break through and, you know, get that championship, get that ring, but we've seen Chris Paul have disappointments before. This isn't our first time seeing him fall short. You know, he has several other series where they were ahead and they fumbled the bag and don't come away on top. So I don't think it's really just negatively impacts his legacy. He's always kind of been known, quote unquote, as a guy who kind of falls short, chokes at the end. So he's still an all-time great point guard. He's still an all-time great player. He just doesn't have that cherry on top to put on his legacy, to put on his resume. But he's still a baller. He's still Chris Paul. So I'm not gonna say just too much negatively impacts his legacy.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, regardless, he's gonna be an all-time great point guard, regardless of what happens. But I think if he won this chip, he would have solidified himself as top 5 point guard. I feel like he would have been over Stockton, he would have been over Nash, Kidd. I'm gonna put Russell Westbrook in there as well. I feel like, he would solidify himself as number 5 because you can't put him over Magic, Curry, Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's still in the conversation for top 5, but you can't say, okay, yeah, you can't say like, okay, yeah, he's definitely top 5 after this loss. So I think that hurts him. But no, again, like, in terms of his legacy being an all-time great, that's not going to change. And this was just kind of, like you said, like just like the cherry on top. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to win. And I just don't see the Suns coming back from this. You can't count on, maybe you can count on AD being injured, but everybody else like Jamal Murray, other guys, that's what I'm saying, right? You can't. I also don't see this Suns team coming back, with all the injuries that happened this season. So I feel like this was his best chance, but it doesn't hurt. I think it just hurts his legacy of being solidified as like a top 5 point guard. But as an all-time great point guard, I mean, that's not going to change. So let's shift this to Giannis. And, he put up 50 points, 14 rebounds, 4 blocks, had an iconic performance. I mean, he had a
15 for 17 from the line.
Yeah.
He knocked down all his free throws. Like, he
was
Steph out there.
I mean, look, all the doubters, he shut them up. People talking about his jump shot, this and that. I mean, he just shut them all up. And so my question is, has Giannis officially passed the torch from people say KD's the best player in the world? People say LeBron's the best player in the world. I have LeBron's the best player in the world, or at least he was. But has he passed the torch as, the best player in the world?
Man, he's at least top 2. It's between him and KD, but I really can't see no argument for, not saying Giannis right now. Like, dude really just come off a historic run in the finals. He really, he figured it out this whole postseason. Like, he took his play up a notch in that Brooklyn series. You saw him really like lock in and that whole kind of Mamba mentality type deal. Like, he was not going to be denied and really turned it up. And you know what? I'll go ahead and say yes, because the thing with KD right now, we know KD is an amazing scorer, an amazing player, great basketball IQ, but he picks and chooses when to play defense. When KD's playing defense, he has a case for, being the best player in the world. But Giannis, that's a given. Giannis is going crazy, 100%, both sides of the ball. offense and
He was
defense. It
swatting
doesn't
all these
matter.
shots. He was swatting shots like it was like a volleyball match yesterday. I'm like,
That's what
sheesh.
I'm saying. Like, you know what he's going to, he's going to go hard offense and defense. And that's night in and night out. So based off of that, I'm going to give it to Giannis because he's consistent with it. It's not because, LeBron's been the same way, like how KD is, where he picks and chooses when to play defense. But when LeBron's playing defense, it's like, okay, like he is that guy. But no, that's what Giannis is doing every night. So I'm going to give it to Giannis right now. I will say he's the best in the world.
Yeah, I think before this series, I think this this like kind of topic came up, and I said no at first. But I said that if Giannis just plays out of this world, then we're gonna have to give him that nod. And I feel like we're gonna have to give Giannis that nod just because what he's done in this series, putting up 40 points in back-to-back games, putting up 50 points in a closeout game. I mean, that game 6 closeout game could arguably be the greatest performance in finals history. It's at least top 5. It's at least probably maybe top 3, just for what he's done. Milwaukee hasn't won a chip in over 50, over 50. Oh yeah.
They won't win in that game if they don't have him. Nobody else could score. Nobody could make a shot.
That's what makes it even better. Like Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, they were just, inefficient. They just weren't doing it. And he had damn near half of his team's points. I mean, they had like 105. He had 50 points. So he almost had half his points. It's kind of like reminiscent of Jordan in 98 when his whole team, he's Pippen. He was out of it and he carried that team and had almost half of their points, if not almost, had like almost all their points. So it was kind of reminiscent of that. I just think we're gonna have to just give Giannis that respect. Now, obviously, we'll have to see next season if KD can bounce back, if LeBron can bounce back. But I think right now the mystical, best player in the world, thing, like, that is Giannis's title right now. Just what he's done. He was just so dominant. And like you said, like in that Nets series, I think he just like tapped into like, all right, if I can dominate down low. And I think it was great that, especially in that game 7, I remember he was on KD and instead of kicking it out to Middleton or doing like the stupid follow away jump shot that he did over Harden, he went down low and then he hit like a little hook shot over KD. And I think that was a clutch shot. And that was kind of the turning point of him realizing, I'm 6'10", 6'11". I'm a freak athlete.
Who needs a jump shot? Yeah.
Who needs a jump shot? Like you can just tap in it, you're like inner Shaq, your inner Wilt or whatever. Just be dominant. Doesn't matter if you shoot threes. And I think it's even more impressive that in a shooting era that, Giannis is dominating, the paint and all of this. So, I would have to say that, I'm a big Bron fan and he's been the best player for almost all my life. But I think the torch has been passed and, we'll see if, LeBron can come back. He was injured and we'll see if he can come back and try and reclaim that next season. We'll see if KD can try and reclaim that. But I think right now we have to give that respect to Giannis. Now, my last question is, I had this on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but I said that Giannis has the chance to be the GOAT, the greatest of all time. I said that. I said he has, with his accolades right now at 26, and looking at Jordan, looking at LeBron at 26 years old, they haven't accomplished, what Giannis has accomplished strictly in terms of accomplishments. Now, obviously, as a better player, you can probably, in terms of between like 18 and 26, Bron's clearly the better player. Jordan was probably the better player. But in terms of accomplishments, this guy, it probably isn't a guy that has more accomplishments at 26.
The only thing he doesn't have was a Rookie of the Year award. He has everything else.
yeah. So do you think Giannis can be in that GOAT conversation? I guess at the end of his career, do you think that's a possibility?
I've been thinking about this. He can definitely have the accomplishments. You know what I'm saying? He's going to continue to rack up the All NBA first teams. He might have another 1 or 2 MVPs in him. That's not outside the realm of possibility. he can be the accomplishment GOAT. You know, I'm always gonna say until another freak player comes along who just shows that they're like Michael Jordan. But I feel like MJ's the GOAT. If I need to win a championship, I know I can lean on MJ to make that happen. And you know, look at the skill set MJ has. I think he's the GOAT. But I mean, Giannis, the dude is out here, has MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year award, the All NBA first teams, and he has a championship, an organic championship, not a let me go join a super team championship. I think we have to carry some extra weight on this title compared to maybe the other championships that guys have acquired. So if he gets 2 more championships like this one, I think he really does he might have a say at the end of things, because we're going to be like, wow, this dude is like 10, 11-time All NBA, 3-time, 4-time MVP. Like, he's going to have some crazy accolades. So there's a chance. I don't think he'll be universally recognized as the GOAT, but when it's all said and done, if he continues to get the individual awards and, you know, win 2 more championships, he can be in the conversation. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think he can. I think if his jump shot does not improve, even if he has the accomplishments, people will still say, well, like in terms of like an overall player, they'll probably still have guys like, you know, Bron, you know, MJ, you know, because as an all around player, you know, they have more of like a skill set. But I think especially if Giannis develops any type of mid range, especially if he becomes a good foul shooter, it is a wrap. It's a wrap. I mean, if he starts hitting free throws, because once he drives to the basket, all you can do is foul him. And if he's hitting his free throws, and that's kind of like the knock on LeBron, is that, you know, he isn't. That's like the one like knock on him, is that he isn't the greatest foul shooter. If he was a great foul shooter, I mean, he'd be he already is unstoppable, but he would literally be unstoppable. Like,
he'd be a perfect player.
So if Giannis can, because he's great at shooting he's good at shooting free throws at home, but when the crowd is counting to 10, 11, 12, you know, he's gonna brick them free throws. He's gonna airball some free throws. But if he can tap into being a good foul shooter, 80%, maybe 75%, 70%.
If he's 75%, I mean, that's a big difference, because, like, you know, him and Shaq are putting up the same type of stats, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to that work in that paint. But if he's shooting 75% from the line, like, it's over. It's over. At that point, he's averaging at least like 32, 33, you know, 35. And he's going to get you 12 boards. It's going to be, his number's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. And going back to the GOAT conversation, I've watched Bron since that's the only guy that I've really watched. You know, I'm too young for, you know, Jordan. So I can only go off the guy that I
need
saw
to get on
in real
YouTube,
time.
Man.
I got to. But, you know, that 2018 Bron, I mean, just for me, the best play I've ever seen in my life. So it's going to be hard for me, because I see how Jordan fans are like, you know, Jordan's the GOAT because like they lived through it and all that, you know, and like in their childhood, you know, Jordan was that guy. And for me, LeBron was that guy. So it's going to be hard for me to even try and put Giannis over Bron, you know, once his career is over. But and it's difficult with, you know, GOATs and the criteria. It's like, you know, accomplishments over, you know, over like skill and all this. So like there's a lot of stuff. There isn't like a set like criteria for a GOAT. But I do think that definitely in terms of accomplishments, that if Giannis keeps this up, obviously we got other guys in this league, Luka, Jason Tatum, John Morant, Trae Young. We got other guys in this league. But as Steph Curry, KD, Bron, all these guys, Kawhi, as they are on the tail end of their careers, really in 5 years, is really going to be, and it pretty much already is, Giannis's league if he keeps this up. And so I think he definitely has a great chance. But Chris, I appreciate you for coming on short notice.
I appreciate you, Miles. It's all good.
For sure, man. I mean, it's like, well, we only met like 2 weeks ago, but it just felt like, you know, you're just like a brother. You know, I appreciate you. You're somebody that I look to, you know, I look up to, you know, in sports, you know, as a sports reporter, as you know, as a sports anchor. So man, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast. I'm gonna have the description down below. People can follow you on Instagram, check you out, and all that. So man, I appreciate you for coming on.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you having me on, bro. This ain't gonna be the last time. It might be the first time, but it's definitely not gonna be the last time.
Oh, for sure. So with that being said, y'all, Real Talk Miles Johnson, we out, y'all.